Hi, boys and girls. It's time for me to read our story, Detective and Togas. And remember how we back up and reread and remember our chapter about handwriting yesterday. So today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to kind of turn it around so you can see the text instead of just looking at me. And I'm going to back up and reread. And remember at the end of chapter 6, okay, it was called handwriting. And remember, they went back over to Xanthopus' house, and this is where they were. And they looked and they found something. Look what I found, he said. This is Mucius talking. It was a short, wide gold chain with a flat disc of gold at one end, a hook at the other. Apparently, the hook had been forced open and bent upward. Mucius brought the chain to Xanthopus. Is this yours? He asked. No, Xanthopus replied. For a while, he regarded the chain thoughtfully and suddenly gave a short laugh. But can I tell you to whom it belongs? Who? The boys asked excitedly, half guessing the answer. It belongs to the burglar, Xanthopus said. So that leads us to our next chapter, which is called The Newspaper. I remember now how it happened, Xanthopus continued. I tried to grip the burglar by the throat, but instead my hands closed on something metallic which came loose. That must have been the chain. Probably it was kicked under the wardrobe in our tussle. He examined the chain more closely. This is the type of chain which goes on the collar of a rain cloak as a sort of clasp. Look here. The disc was sewed onto the collar. A few threads of wool are still clinging to the holes. There was probably a second disc with an eye for the hook. When I tugged at the chain, the hook was bent straight and slipped out of the eye. The chain's very beautifully worked, by the way. What are those funny pictures? Antonius asked, rubbing his finger over the gold disc. Your hands need washing, Xanthopus reproved him. Those marks engraved on the disc are hieroglyphics, Egyptian picture writing. Now, all we need it to do is to find the owner of the chain and we'll have the burglar, Mucius said hopefully. Ridiculous, Xanthopus said. Rome has a population of 500,000. A fine chance you have of finding the one cloak this chain belongs to. No, it's not much of a clue. Here, keep the chain, it's yours. Delighted, Mucius thanked his teacher and dropped the chain into his pocket. The servant came in with a stack of damp cloths to apply to Xanthopus' sore leg, and the boys were sent away. As they crossed the forum, they passed by the great sundial back of the orator's platform and saw that the third hour of the day had already begun. We ought to hurry, Julius said. Rufus must be terribly anxious for us to get back. Rufus can wait, Mucius said. We must see Vinicius first. Why Vinicius? The others asked in surprise. To keep him from going to the prefect, Mucius explained. We'll tell him that somebody forged Rufus's handwriting, but he knows we're Rufus's friends, and so he won't believe us, Publius objected. This remark had a dampening effect on the boys' spirits. Ahem, Mucius murmured. I never thought of that. How about this? Julius proposed. We will take the writing tablet on which Rufus wrote for us this morning and have my father look it over and compare it with the writing on the temple. Since my father is a judge, he'll be able to tell right off that the writing was forged. And he can write a letter about it to Vinicius. How long will all that take? Mucius asked. A couple of days, Julius said with a crestfallen air. That long? Mucius exclaimed. My father is in Pompeii right now, Julius explained. He had to go down and preside over a gladiatorial show he sponsored. We can't wait that long, Mucius said. Vinicius was once a judge himself, Flavius said. Perhaps he can compare the handwritings. A fine idea, Mucius approved. And Flavius grinned proudly. Publius was sent off to obtain the writing tablet from Rufus, after which he would meet the others in front of Vinicius' house. Publius was the fastest runner among the boys. He had long, skinny legs and always came out first in races. Pleased with his assignment, he shot off like an arrow. Shot off like an arrow. What is that? Like an arrow. In the meanwhile, the forum, empty of a few hours ago, had become a bustling place, swarming with people who poured in from all the side streets, from the chariot, from the noise and buzz of talk. It might have been a chariot race at the Circus Maximus. Everywhere there were groups of citizens discussing the affairs of the day, their togas billowing in the breeze. An especially large crowd stood in front of the massive building which housed the National Archives. Curious, the boys forced their way boldly to the front of this crowd, but they were disappointed. There was nothing to see except the daily newspaper, which had been hung out by two of the censor's officials. The latest news had been written on it in neat handwriting, and the people were pressing forward eagerly to read. In the front row of the crowd stood several well-dressed slaves, the copyists of rich patricians, who copied the law on wax tablets with astonishing speed. Back at home, their masters waited impatiently for the transcribed bulletins. Antonius, Flavius, and Julius wanted to go on. They had been hoping for something more sensational than a dull old newspaper, but Mucius did not move and stared in fascination at the news. "There's something about the temple of Minerva here," he whispered to the others. "Where?" Flavius asked. "Not so loud," Mucius shushed him. "There, down the middle." The writing was small, and it took Antonius, Julius, and Flavius a moment before they discovered the item. Then, with growing alarm, they read, "Last night, the temple of Minerva of Esquiline, erected in honor of our emperor, was desecrated by the impudent hand of a shameless boy. Smeared with red paint on the eastern wall of the temple are the words, 'Cassius is a dumbbell.' This impious act will certainly arouse the indignation of all right-minded citizens of Rome. It's high time that the authorities took energetic measures to combat such delinquency among our modern youth. The temple faces the home of his honor, Senator Vinicius. In all likelihood, the insult is directed against the senator's son, Cassius. Young Vinicius is a pupil at the well-known Xanthos school. It seems evident that the guilty boy would be one of his fellow pupils with whom Cassius may have quarreled. We hope that the senator will promptly question his son in order to discover the culprit and turn him over to the police at once. Public opinion will not rest until this young hooligan is behind bars. A respecter of the emperor." And that was the end of chapter 7. And we will see what happens tomorrow. Chapter 8 is entitled Senator Vinicius. So it's getting interesting. I hope everyone's tuning in to see what's going to happen. Okay? Love you guys, and I miss you. Bye.